Sometimes between 4:30 and 7:30 p.m. on March 7, a 1-ton object fell from the orbit around Earth. The object began a death plunge through Earth's thick atmosphere, disintegrating and burning up, leaving behind a fiery trail in the skies. The probe, hurtling towards Earth, met its end above the Pacific Ocean. This was not an accident. Instead, it was a pre-planned, well-orchestrated strategy to end the mission of Meghatropics 1 or MT1 by India. But how do you kill a satellite? What does it take to bring it down? Why bring it down at all and not leave it in the vastness of space to remain out there forever? In this episode, we'll talk about the process of crashing a satellite and why at times it is extremely important to kill them. My name is Shibu Tripathi and this is the Universe This Week. The Indian Space Research Organization or ISRO earlier this week crashed its MT1 satellite after a decade-long service, during which it studied the tropical belt and gave important insights into the climatic changes happening around the planet. Developed jointly by India and France, this mission was launched in 2011 and continued to operate till 2021, before it was decided to decommission it. Now this is where it gets tricky. The decision to decommission a satellite is easy, but what happens with it next is more important. Space agencies cannot leave their dead satellite in zero gravity, as it raises the risk of accidental breakup in the future. It could create a domino effect if the debris hit another satellite, causing more damages. Collision in space is not easy to avoid, given the massive number of satellites operating in low Earth orbit these days. ISRO in 2022 tried over 8,000 close approaches in space, of which 524 were just within a kilometer of Indian asset. 21 collision avoidance maneuvers were conducted to prevent another object from hitting our satellite. Looking at the massive number of probes in orbit around Earth, the UN has set up a few guidelines for ensuring that assets remain safe and operational. Among these include rules to decommission and deorbit junk satellites safely so that they do not pose a threat to others. What does this UN rule say? It calls for deorbiting a low Earth orbit object at its end of life, preferably through a controlled re-entry to safe impact zone, or by bringing it to an orbit where the orbital lifetime is less than 25 years. You must be then wondering, why didn't we leave the satellite in space to let it fly away? As I said, it does have the chances of accidental breakup or a collision. But at times, with the amount of fuel left on board, the satellite could remain operational for more than 25 years. And in the case of India's MT1, that lifetime was about 100 years, way above the UN limit. Therefore, the death plunge. So how was MT1 satellite crashed? The satellite has been orbiting at an altitude of 867 kilometers above Earth. This was higher than the orbit of International Space Station. When the decision to send the satellites on its final journey was taken, it still had about 125 kilograms of fuel left in it. ISRO then began implementing a meticulously designed plan to slowly lower the orbit of the probe. In 18 orbital maneuvers since August last year, the probe was lowered from an altitude of 867 kilometers to just above the planet. Usually, large satellites or rocket bodies are made to undergo controlled re-entry to limit ground casualty risks. However, all such satellites are specifically designed with a kill switch at the end of their lives. MT1 was not designed for that, making it way more challenging. The aged satellite was already degrading. Innovative workarounds were then implemented by ISRO based on discussions with the mission teams and considering flight dynamics, aerodynamics, propulsion, controls, navigation, thermals, and other subsystem requirements. A safe impact zone in the Pacific Ocean was chosen to ensure that if any big parts survived the crash, it would only end up in the water, far from any land. The final 2 deorbit commands were then beamed to the satellite on March 7th that fired 4 Newton engines on board the satellite for about 20 minutes each, putting it on the death plunge. Deorbiting such objects are expected to rise in the coming years as more and more satellites are launched into orbit. Astronomers across the world have raised concerns over the satellite constellations not only blocking the view of the cosmos but also raising threat of orbital collisions. Earth at the moment has 8,000 satellites hovering above it, and with companies like SpaceX, OneWeb and Amazon launching hundreds more in the future, that number is expected to rise, making it critical for space agencies to not only monitor their assets but also junk created by others. That is all in this episode of the Universe This Week. Like, share and subscribe to India Today for more such science videos and follow me on Twitter for daily science coverage.